Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, August 22nd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in just 8 days. The game against Michigan in 99 days. But if you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at gratefulgriddleoh.com. All right, as we count down the days to that Texas game, there are a lot of storylines we are still following around the Ohio State football team. Got most of those positional battles sort of situated, settled earlier in the week. Now sort of starting to shift our focus to the game itself against those Texas Longhorns. On today's show, you're going to get to hear a bunch from new Ohio State defensive coordinator Matt Patricia. We've talked a lot about the offense all week long. Going to let you hear a little bit more about the defense here. Got a chance to talk to him a little earlier in the week, and he had a lot of interesting things to say. He's sort of becoming a popular interview subject among the Ohio State beat. One of the first things he was asked about was Texas quarterback Arch Manning. Now, Arch and Matt Patricia have not faced each other on the field yet, but Matt Patricia, over the years as the defensive coordinator and other defensive staff members with the New England Patriots, he's faced the Manning family quite a bit, so he knows what that means to be a Manning and to go up against a Manning. So what is it like preparing now to take on Arch and the Texas Longhorns next Saturday?
Yeah, I'm worried about what his uncles are telling him right now. It's probably the biggest thing for me. I got a chance to actually see Arch last summer, and just, he's big, he's strong, he's really athletic. He's got a very live arm. He can push the ball downfield. So he's a really good player. This is a huge challenge for us, but it'll be good. It'll be fun in the shoe. I'm excited to have our fans out there yelling and screaming. See how he handles all the pressure of that too. But I'm sure his uncles and his dad, and his grandfather, they've pretty much groomed him as a quarterback, his entire life. So he's a great kid. He's a tremendous young man. But that'll be a big challenge for us. Should be fun.
Mentioned earlier some of the positional battles that have been going on during fall camp. One of those is at safety. Caleb Downs is going to be playing one of those safety spots. The question has really been, who's going to be next to him? And the answer is, it feels like the answer is kind of it depends to a certain degree. Here's Matt Patricia sort of breaking down what he's seen from Malik Hartford and Jalen McClain as those guys have been battling for time at that safety position. And you're going to hear a quick follow-up from Dan Hope of 11 Warriors asking for some clarification on where that all stands.
Great competition, back and forth. I think both of them have really made great gains, certainly with the communication. I think that's one of the biggest things in the back end is tying together the coverage, whether you're talking to the corners outside or down to the linebackers in front of you. There's some things in there communication-wise that are really critical, and both those guys have done a good job. Certainly deep field play, being down in the box, kind of some of the different skill sets that those guys need. I think those guys have competed really well. Maybe there's a little bit of a difference in play with those guys where the positions that they're in. But still making plays out on the field, which is good. I think it's been great for us to have some live tackling out there too, which has been good to see those guys in those spots. So been a good competition, really. We'll have some things, obviously, where we can play a lot of guys and put a lot of people on the field, especially at the safety positions. So that's one of the advantages.
Is there a leader in that competition, or do you expect them both to play?
Yeah, I would expect them both to play and kind of, be out there. The first game's always tough too, right? It's going to be hot. It's going to be a lot of plays. We're going to see a lot of stuff. So these guys haven't played in a while. So going out there and playing, whatever it is, 70 whole snaps for an entire game, I think you got to be smart with that.
With a new defensive coordinator this year, it's going to be a little bit of a new scheme for the Buckeyes. So how much of that defense is really in right now? How much is the team really learned? How much are they comfortable with running right now? And how much of it is going to be sort of a process that continues as the defense continues to grow and evolve, maybe based on some opponents, maybe based on just time with their coaching staff and with the players during the season?
Yeah, it's a great question because I do think this is like a journey. The season will be, it'll have its challenges and its turns and its changes as you go through. I think the biggest thing for us coming up with the game in front of us is just making sure it's really clean, making sure it's something the guys can go play fast, play aggressive, and communicate well, and make sure we're not doing anything to beat ourselves in those situations. I think that's going to be really important. And as that grows and as the confidence of some of the things that we're doing and those guys just playing together, it's just a lot of people that haven't players that haven't been on the field together and communicating at the same time. So we still have to go through that process on game day, and you'll learn a lot on game day. So that journey is exciting. It's a challenge, but it's something I do expect to grow as we go through the season.
Always interesting to hear the thoughts from the coaches on the opposite side of the ball on some of the players. So quarterback Julian Sayin, you've heard a bunch from Ryan Day and Brian Hartline about him. Matt Patricia had some interesting thoughts as well. He has gotten to see Julian Sayin from the other side of the ball and has been sort of having to try and confuse Julian Sayin and make Julian Sayin, feel you get pressure on Julian Sayin, all the kind of stuff. He's trying to make Julian Sayin's life as difficult as possible. So what has he seen from Julian Sayin as he has been trying to make his life as difficult as possible?
Yeah, two great young kids battling it out. I thought it was fun to watch them compete, and obviously to be on the other side of it, knowing some of the different looks that we might have or the coverages and the reads. Both of them, really did a great job. And, Coach Day and Coach Hartline and Coach Fess, obviously, doing everything they can to evaluate that. For me, it was really what I saw is just, decision making when I'm showing different looks or we're having different coverages or we're rolling through practices without scripts, where things are going to be moving at a little bit of a different pace and being able to handle the tempo of the offense and things like that in the huddle, adjustments at the line of scrimmage. We kind of threw a bunch of different things at them. And I think his poise, his ability to kind of see the defense and then also really make quick decisions. Lincoln's a great athlete too. He did a good job, against us, obviously. But Julian, I think just his ability to kind of like see the defense, make the decision, get the ball out quick. And I think that's, one of the things you want in a quarterback that's, going out there in a big stage and in a big game here is just make sure we're taking care of the ball and doing all those things that you need, to help yourself win.
One of the things that we saw when we were in camp earlier in the fall was a bunch of Caleb Downs playing at nickel. Is that something that they're looking at doing for real this fall? How much are they thinking they're going to want to use him there? And how does Matt Patricia determine when he does and doesn't make that change?
I think as much as you can get him as close to the ball as possible, he's pretty good when he's around the ball. He usually makes some really good things happen. So if we're in a situation where maybe dictated by formation or coverage where, we're not getting him close enough to the ball, then we need to get him closer to the ball. We need to put him in those positions. Sometimes, whether it's formation or down and distance can determine that too, what kind of packages that you're running to have him in those different spots. He's such a great communicator. He's so strong with communicating, to the deep guys or to the down guys and being in all those different areas. And his ability, just his football savviness is, it's incredible just to be able to see the game. A lot of times, sometimes he's seeing the throw, but I think before the quarterback's made up his mind where he's going with it, he just has a great feel. So that's part of the decision of just trying to get him in those spots, and making sure that he can be around the ball as much as possible.
Caleb Downs is obviously a very popular topic of conversation, widely considered one of the two best players in college football, with the other being on the Ohio State offensive side of the ball. You know who number 4 is, but we got to talk about number 2 in that safety room. Matt Patricia you hear him talk all the time about how impressed he is with Caleb Downs, just from the mental side of things, let alone the physical side of things. But just talking to Caleb Downs, just in the meeting room, away from the field, how much does what you learn there impact how you use him on the field?
Yeah. Football conversations with Caleb are great. It's like talking to another coach, and the great part as a coach to be able to talk to a player that has that sort of vision and feel for the game, is you can understand like, hey, he can really see this. Maybe we can do this adjustment, or he can, be in this alignment and still be able to do this job. Okay, well then we can maybe have this sort of look or this sort of pre-snap alignment. And really, that's the most important thing, right? It doesn't really matter what I see or how I perceive the game. It's what he sees through his eyes, and that's something that I've done in the past. I think as a coach, you become a good coach through great players, and Caleb is a great player. And if you just listen to the things that he's telling you that he sees, now I can maybe help move him into some positions to be in spots. But certainly, we've got 10 other guys on the field that we have to coordinate with all of that and make sure that the chess pieces are kind of lined up in the right spots for the defense to succeed as a whole.
Matt Patricia's background is in the NFL, where generally there's not a huge gap between the skill levels of the guys on the different teams. You look at a point spread between two NFL teams, and if the spread is more than 10, that's enormous. There are only going to be a couple of games Ohio State plays this year where the spread is 10 or less. So you've got kind of a built-in Jimmy's and Joe's advantage on a lot of Saturdays as an Ohio State assistant coach. One of the spots where that's true is at linebacker. Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles. What are their physical traits and their abilities open up for Matt Patricia to do with them at linebacker?
Really versatile players, guys that have great length, great size, great speed. They can cover a lot of range. I think it's more than just, the skills that they have. And when you're looking at scheme, it's just kind of the space that they can occupy. They really, I think, in coverage or in the run game, they can eat up so much ground, and they can really make it difficult on the middle of the field of the defense, and I think that's something that we always want to try to do a good job of, is being strong in the middle. And when you got guys with that sort of athleticism and that sort of size, there are some certain things you can do, different, pieces that you can move around. And that's what makes it fun, with those guys. So you're just trying to make it as difficult as possible in the offense to know where they are, and then how are they going to play in those different roles. But the versatility that those two bring, I think you got to really like what they can do in the different jobs.
And finally, Matt Patricia, he's new to the college game, definitely not new to the defensive coordinator game. Brian Hartline, this is his first year calling plays. So this is kind of similar to the Julian Sayin question from earlier. What has Matt Patricia done in terms of working with Brian Hartline to maybe give him feedback on, hey, here's what I'm seeing from you, here's some stuff you might want to consider, as Brian Hartline is sort of learning the ropes as the new play caller for the Buckeyes?
I really enjoy when you have that cross conversation between offense and defense, and I love the game, so I like special teams too. I'm going to talk about all that stuff and the things that you see, and I think the more you can relate all of it together from a fundamental standpoint, then it's all ball. There is things that go back and forth between all three phases. Certainly from offense to defense, I think we're always having that conversation of hey, maybe this didn't really hit, but I see this space, or this might be, not good against maybe a coverage or a defense that we're playing. And I'm going to look at that and say, hey, I'm seeing these tells or these tips, or, this pattern is really okay, or when this guy's in this position. So I think that's important to do as coaches, and especially in a situation where, we're not practicing against another team, we're not playing against another team in preseason like I've been used to, where you can kind of make a trial run at it. You're really playing against each other. So that feedback, that direct feedback, is really helpful. It's been great for him to really help me, in some of the college things that I'm not used to, that I have to be ready for and prepare for and make sure the defense is ready to go. So he's been a huge help with that. But same on the other end of it, where I'm showing maybe some different looks and trying to do some confusing things in there for the quarterbacks, and telling them what I'm seeing and why I'm doing those things. So, it's great football convo for sure.
Well, week 0, college football is back on Saturday. Cannot wait. Should be a full day. Not a ton of games, but some interesting ones, starting with Farmageddon, Kansas State and Iowa State coming out of Ireland. Remember last year, that was that shocking upset to start the season. Georgia Tech beating what was at that point, very briefly, a top 10 Florida State team. We'll see if the 2025 college football season starts off with that kind of a bang on Saturday. Cannot wait, though. College football finally back. The longest offseason in major North American sports is now just about over. And then a week from Saturday, number 1 versus number 2 in the horseshoe. Buckeyes, Longhorns, we will be there. We will have a whole week of coverage. We are kicking it into high gear as we head into game week in Columbus, Ohio for the Buckeyes and the Longhorns. You're going to want to make sure you are subscribed at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We got our whole team covering the Buckeyes. It's going to be a big recruiting visit weekend next weekend. We got our X's and O's guys as well. We're going to get Ross Fulton back on the show, sort of preview that Buckeye-Texas game on the morning show coming up. We got a ton coming for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Make sure you're subscribed in both places. Let a friend know as well. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of interest around Ohio State. Get everyone ready for the season at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.